Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. My name is Gavin Boby. We stop mosques from being built and we win. We've slowed the tide. Eventually we will stop the tide, and then after that we will turn the tide. You can do the same, and we want you to, because Europe remembers the Danish people and the courage and decency shown by ordinary Danish people under occupation during World War II. That is a good example to the rest of Europe, that the rest of Europe is grateful for and has not forgotten. We want you to show that again. We need that this time, because the problems we're seeing with Islam, those are not the things like the sexual attacks in Cologne, the sexual slavery in England, massacres in Paris. Those are not just about crime, they are about Islamic doctrine, the Quran, the Hadith and the Sirah. That's the permanent word of Allah, and that is the source code of Islamic doctrine. And that is interesting if you look at it in the light of the UN, the United Nations Convention on Genocide. Now that is the founding definition of genocide within international law, and it comprises two things. Okay, it comprises two things. First of all, there's the intent to destroy a group. Secondly, any one of 5 genocidal acts. Now, firstly, the intent to destroy a group. That group in this context is the non-Muslim, the kuffar. Verse after verse of the Quran tells Muslims that they should destroy that group and replace it with Islam through terror, war and destruction. Now, I'll read 2 verses of the Quran here. There are loads, I could go on, but verse 8:39, fight them until religion should be only for Allah. Or again, verse 2:193, and fight them until religion is only for Allah. These are not random quotes. They are part of a systemic doctrine, and that intent is to eventually make Islam worldwide the only religion, destroying other religious groups, the non-believer. 51% of the Quran, Hadith and Sirah deals with the kuffar. Secondly, the 5 genocidal acts. These are firstly, killing, serious harm, destructive conditions of life, preventing births and transferring children. Now, I want to deal with those and what Islam has to say about those. Firstly, killing. Now, I'll quote just one verse here, I could quote many. Verse 2:191, kill them wherever you find them and drive them out from whence they drove you out. This goes on and on. The Quran repeatedly tells Muslims to kill the kuffar, quotes, wherever you find them. That is the context right there. 24% of the Medina Quran is about jihad. That is genocidal within the definition of the United Nations Convention on Genocide. Secondly, serious bodily or mental harm to the unbelievers as a group. Again, I've only got time to quote one Quran verse here, and that's verse 8:12. I will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve. Therefore, strike off their heads and strike off every fingertip of them. Or you go to Hadith Sahih Muslim. The last hour will not come unless the Muslims kill the Jews, and a stone or a tree would say, Muslim, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him. 9.3% of the Quran, Hadith and Sirah is anti-Jewish, as opposed to 7% of Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf. What does that tell you? And hatred of the Jews is worse than other forms of hatred. It harms an eternal victim who brings benefit to society, and it's the thumbprint of genocidal doctrine. That is genocide within the UN definition, the UN Genocide Convention. Fourthly, preventing births among the group. That is another genocidal act. Just look at the Muslim rape gangs in England. At least 40, as a minimum of 1,400 children sexually enslaved, sexually destroyed within one small English town. And these rape gangs are not about sex. They're not really about crime. They're about sexual destruction. No normal man gets any pleasure nailing a young girl's tongue to the table or raping her with a baseball bat. That is not about sex. That is about sexual destruction and enslavement. And slavery is allowed throughout Islamic doctrine. 14 times in the Quran refers to those whom your right hands possess. That is not a prisoner of war. That is not a servant. That is a slave. By definition, that sexual slavery prevents births, childbearing, within the group, within the unbelievers. And sexual slavery inflicts fear and humiliation upon society. It's a deliberate act of war, and it undermines the will to resist. It is intended to do so. That is genocidal within the definition of the UN Genocide Convention. Fifthly, transferring children out of that group, the group of the unbelievers. And that is what Islam, again, sanctions. It has always taken children from kuffar families. Muhammad's army killed a whole tribe of 800 Jewish families, and then quotes from the life of Muhammad, "Then the apostle divided the property, wives and children of Qurayza Jews among the Muslims. He took the children, distributed them among Muslim families. He took those children away." You also have the Janissaries. These are young Christian boys or non-Muslim boys taken away to be Muslim soldiers. Today you have Christian or Yazidi children stolen in Iraq or Syria, or the victims of the rape gangs in England, ruthlessly separated from their families. That is genocidal, not according to me, not according to some mob, but according to the UN Genocide Convention. And that is written into the source code of Islam. That is not Islamism, that is not radical Islam, that is not extremist Islam. Islam is Islamist, it is extreme, it is radical. Again, not according to me, but according to the UN Declaration, the UN Genocide Convention. But there is some good news, and that is that that convention also makes it a crime, punishable, to engage in complicity with genocide. That means people in power who cover it up, who facilitate it, who make it easier, who make excuses for it. That in itself is not genocide, but it is punishable by law. So what does this all mean? Well, firstly, it means politicians should take care. They should take care not to keep picking on people who stand up for freedom and decency. That has to stop. By stopping people speaking out peacefully, you don't stop people speaking out, you stop them doing it in a peaceful way. It means for you that you have no choice but to stand up, because the problems with Islam have no logical stopping point. They will not stop. If they will countenance genocide, they will countenance lesser crimes as well. You will have to stand up, otherwise these problems will get worse. You will see more killings like you saw in Paris. You will see more attacks like you saw at the Bataclan Theatre. You will see more rape gangs like we're seeing in England. You'll see more harshness and children separated from their families. And it means you're going to have to stay standing for years to come, because that passivity and pandering towards Islam, that is going to continue for years to come. It won't end tomorrow, so you need stamina. You need to make a decision. And the reason it's going to continue is because the situation and the solutions that are required are too tough, too bad to face. So people will put off facing up to the problem for as long as possible. The turning point will probably come if there is some kind of economic crisis, if the welfare states or the economies break down, but we are years away from that. Now, what can you do? What does that mean you can do? I get a lot of questions from people saying, it's all right for you, you found something to do, what can I do? Well, first of all, get yourself informed about Islamic doctrine, what it means, where will it go, how far will it go? Secondly, stay standing. You're going to have to show your politicians that they can't say they weren't warned. Thirdly, and this is most important, think it through. Think through solutions, peaceable, orderly, lawful ways to deal with this problem. Because if our governments do wake up, they will probably only wake up when they are in a panic. And governments that panic resort to lawless violence, extreme violence, because they're in a panic. And they won't have the time to think through a solution. If you thought it through for them, they will have it. There's some chance of this being dealt with in a reasonably humane way. And that is why I do what I do, because it's important to win. I want to win, and we do win, but I want to win fairly. I want to win humanely, in an orderly way, without disgracing future generations. Future generations are at stake here. And that's what we want you to do. As I said, Europe remembers how Denmark protected its Jews. It's one of the few occupied peoples who did so, and we want you to show that same courage this time. You are doing so right here, right now, and I thank you for that. Thank you.